Yeah, so I'm just gonna explain quickly what I call the yo-yo setup. So, um, if you want to understand this setup, you gotta know and understand the basics of supply and demand, and also liquidity. So, also liquidity in the market. All right. So, let me give you an example. So, first of all, okay, actually, let me go through this example. So, liquidity's been swept here. This was Asia's low. Asia's low was swept here. Now, if I was first coming to the market right here, I'd be looking at supplies like these. Be looking at, these supplies, cells like this. I'd be looking at, and these are getting invalidated. And a good example of when to like kind of stay out and not take these type of setups is when you notice that I swept Asia's lows, especially. So Asia's lows have been swept with this dip here. Then we're just completely just invalidating zone after zone. So okay. So I'd be looking, once we're getting past, so if we go to the 1 hour, we have a 1 hour supply right here. Okay, it has a broken structure. I broke this low here, broke this low here. Okay, so I'd be looking, once it invalidates the 1 hour zone, I'd be looking for just buys. So typically when you see like the yo when I see the yo-yo setup and I'm noticing it, and it swept Asia's lows, I'm looking if we're at 1 hour supply, and if it's invalidating that 1 hour supply, I'm just looking for buyers because there's a lot of buyers in the market at this point. It'll be very risky to take a sell with this much momentum pushing up. So basically, all it is we sweep Asia's lows, or we just sweep general liquidity. But it's best when we sweep Asia's lows. So there could just be normal liquidity sitting here. So for example, if liquidity was created in London, we swept it and came up, that would be decent too. That would count as a yo-yo setup. But this setup generally happens again and again and again after sweeping Asia's lows. It can happen after sweeping Asia's highs too, but I notice it more this year has happened with the lows. Since we're okay, so let me just draw this. So what will happen is it'll sweep the lows, it'll start to push up, and then midway through the push up, it will create a demand. So for example, it creates demand here and here, another one, and we're just waiting for a pullback. And here we go. So we've pulled back. If we look at the 1 hour, we were bearish. We've now broke structure to the upside. We've got this gap to fill in here that we've almost filled in. Okay, so I would just be waiting for this candle high to be broken to get in, and then I put my stop loss just under here, and I'll target these highs up here. This should stop with this stop. It depends, but generally it can stop you out, but you can just re-enter if you see that it pushing back up. But you want to target this liquidity up here, the high. Now I target most of my profits at 1 to 1, and then I just leave a runner. But if you don't wanna take most of your profits at 1 to 1, and you just wanna hold the whole thing, then you can target the high up here for the whole thing. So let me go to another example. So 22nd of June on GU. Okay, so if we go to GU, we look for the 22nd of June. Okay, so let's mark out Asia's low. So where's the lowest point Asia went in the session? It was this point. The start of London, we swept it. Asia's highs are up here somewhere. They're up here. So I don't like marking up the highs and the lows all the time because it can kind of distract. It can distract from supply and demand because then you could just be thinking about liquidity. So for example, if we swept this low and it started to push up a bit and then we get a nice supply, it could kind of turn you off the supply when in reality this supply, I'd take the supply every time. So let's just look at this. We've swept the lows here. We've now broke this high up here. Now, if we just broke this high, I wouldn't I wouldn't take this demand if it just pulled back now. For example, if it just pulled back here, I wouldn't take this because um it's just not this break structure here is not it's not major enough. I'd want at least this high broken. But I prefer it to take out Asia's highs first. So I've taken out Asia's highs. We've supplied a demand down here, demand here. We're just waiting for a pullback. Okay, so we'd be waiting for this candle to be broken here. And I'd take most of my profits at 1-to-1, but since the high is right next to here and it's only a 1-to-3, 1-to-1.3, I'd take this if we're waiting for this candle to break. Waiting for this candle to break. For this candle to break. And I'd be in now, so I'd be in. So I wouldn't go for the full 1 to 3.8. I'd wait for it to just hit 1-to-1. And I'd close 75% of my position, and I'd just target my runner for this high up here. There we go. So generally when it comes back and retraces back to the demand, it would just come and sweep out this high here. It will vary, like it doesn't often just give you your 1-to-1 and then just come back down because it's still on this push up, it's still on this move up. Like for example, if we go to Thursday this week, I took this week. It was a nice win this week. If we just go here, this was just textbook. This happened on EU, GU, and GJ in London session, but it only pulled back to, I stopped trading at 11 a.m. UK time. If it only pulled back to GU, it didn't pull back to GJ or EU, even though it presented the setups. GU was the only one that pulled back. So we swept out Asia's lows here, textbook, broke the highs. If we go to the 1 hour, we're bearish. Okay, so I marked up this demand. We pull back. And honestly, I got in the break of the candle, I didn't get aggressive. And I just hold for the 1 to 1.3. Now, if you go to the 1 hour, there was a gap here that needed filling. And you could have held for this. And you would have had a TP quite quickly. This thing ran though. This thing ran like crazy. Yeah, it went for a 1 to 13. So this was a crazy setup. Show another example of this. Okay, this was a clean example. So if we go to the 30th of June on GJ. Okay. So this setup, it happens over and over again, and you shouldn't hesitate. You might not get it for like a month or two, but when it comes, you have to be able to notice it. So I'll give an example of when you have to be able to notice it after this setup here. So if I approach the market here, I'd be looking at this supply for an entry, and then this gets invalidated. Okay, so this gets invalidated. We've swept out these lows here. Clear. We swept out, first of all, we swept out all these lows with this push down. We swept out this low too, and now we're pushing up. And we have a major breaker structure, and we have a 5-minute demand left here. So I'd be waiting for a pullback on this, and it broke this green candle. Good rejections. I'd enter this, put my stop loss here, target 1-to-1, leave a runner to liquidity, or if you want to just leave your whole position to liquidity, then you can do that. This is a great setup. I remember catching this on a challenge I was taking. Helped me pass phase 2. So let me give you an example of when you have to notice the trend is changing. So if we go to Monday this week, okay, this is what I got caught up in this week, and it's an example of it not pulling back. So it may not always pull back. It's not going to always pull back. If you can just spot the move, then it gives you a better, it gives you a good chance of. If you're able to spot the reversal, it gives you a good chance of being able to catch it. So for example, okay, I came on the Tuesday, and I was looking at EU sales. I was looking at this supply here, this supply here, and this had extra confluence. We were coming off a 1 hour supply here. With a breaker structure, we broke this low here, and we pulled back. Coming off the 1 hour supply, scale down to the 5 minute entry time frame, and looking at these supplies. This one invalidated, this one invalidated again, and then this one, I was waiting on the break of this candle, didn't break it, waiting on the break of this candle, it broke it, so I entered for a sell here, and I was targeting 1-to-1 for majority of my position, and I was going to close most of it, and then just target this low here. Most of the time I'd take the full position at 1-to-1, but we were coming off a 1 hour supply, so we have higher time frame confluences, and generally if you're taking a 5 minute setup coming off a 1 hour zone, it's going to run for a lot more than just a normal 5 minute zone. So I ended up getting stopped out here. My bias was sells. I was looking at sells. We're bearish on every time frame, so I'm looking at sells, plus we're coming off a 1 hour supply, break structure. Okay, and then once we got to here and we were still pushing up strong, I realized, okay, I've seen this again and again and again. We've just taken out Asia's lows. We've just taken out yesterday's low too. So if we put on yesterday's low, we just took out yesterday's low. So at this point, I realized, okay, if it breaks through this supply, we're defo bullish. I'm going to be looking for buys. It's the yo-yo setup. And then we broke through. So okay, I was looking for a pullback on this setup. So at the start of the session, I was looking for sales. We were bearish. I was looking at this setup. And then after this sweep, and I noticed that all these zones were becoming invalid, I took a loss. It sliced through our 1 hour supply. You have to be able to catch the reversal and switch your bias quickly. You don't want to get too attached to your bias. So I was waiting on a pullback here, and I stopped trading here, so I never got the pullback. It did pull back later on in New York, but I'd be careful taking this because to get to this demand, we're breaking one, two, three lows just to get to the demand, and by the time we get there, we could be bearish. So we reach it, and good rejections on the zone, and it ends up hitting our 1-to-1, but not hitting the runner. So I have an example of the opposite. So for a sell, if we go to the 21st of July on GU, okay, so on a Friday, here we go. So you see here, we have Asia's highs, it's been swept out. We've swept this liquidity here, and on the push down, on the way down, we've created a supply with a breaker structure. So we broke this low. So we're taking out Asia's lows. So we've taken out Asia's highs, created the liquidity sweep, and then halfway through, created a zone that we're waiting for a retracement on to enter. And we've already swept the lows, which is a good thing. So if we pull back to this zone, we wait for this breaker candle, good rejections, no closes in the zone, we target 1-to-1, and place our runner for liquidity. And there we go, playing around at the zone. This would have been scary, like, I would have had faith, I wouldn't have cut this. Normally I'm quite generous with my stop loss. This could have stopped you out, but then around here, I'd say, even if it stopped me out, I'd be looking at getting back in around here with these rejections, but this would be playing around. It only really came and hit my 1-to-1 about an hour after being in this setup over, but eventually, yeah, there we go. So that's literally just it. All you look for is the highs to be swept, and then a zone to be created on the push down. You get back in and target liquidity, or if you're looking at a buy, you're looking at the lows to be swept, the push up, demand to be created on the push up, retracement back, and then target liquidity. It's simple, pretty much. All you're waiting for is the sweep, demand to be created, the pullback, and then you target the highs. And the opposite for a sell. The highs to be swept, supply to be created, pulls back, and then target this low right here. It's pretty simple to be honest, but like it was on Tuesday, it just never pulled back, and it could do this and flip your whole bias. So for here, I was looking at sales like this was a clean setup. I was looking at this, we were coming off the 1 hour, gave me break a candle, break structure. It was a clean setup. But once you notice the invalid setups like here and here, clean setup loses, it breaks through the 1 hour supply. Okay, it's time to switch the bias. You gotta notice when the trend is changing, what's going on with sweat the lows. It's the yo-yo setup. I'm just looking for that. Um, so yeah, this is a clean setup. This was one of the wins. This was a horrible week for me, supply and demand wise, but this was one of the setups that helped me make some of the money back. I didn't hold any for any run. I say I just hold it for the 1 to 1.3.